You met someone last week who reminded you of yourself. Maybe it was a stranger who shared your accent, your last name, or just a face that looked faintly familiar in a way you couldn't quite explain. And without meaning to, you trusted them a little faster. Gave them the benefit of the doubt a little sooner. That instinct feels harmless, almost sweet. But it's actually one of the oldest, strangest shortcuts your brain runs, and almost nobody stops to ask where it came from. Start with an uncomfortable question. Why would your brain use something as superficial as a face, an accent, or a shared surname to decide who deserves your trust? Trust should be earned through actions, through time, through evidence. And yet you extend it instantly and unconsciously to people who simply resemble you in some way. That shortcut isn't random, it's ancient. The psychologist Lisa de Bruin ran a series of experiments that exposed exactly how deep this goes. She digitally morphed photographs of strangers to subtly resemble each participant's own face, just enough to register unconsciously, not enough to be consciously noticed. Then she had participants play trust-based economic games with these slightly altered strangers. The result was strange and consistent. People trusted faces that resembled their own significantly more, investing more money, taking more risks, cooperating more readily, all without knowing why. Nobody in the study looked at the manipulated photo and thought, "This face looks like mine." Their behavior changed anyway. So what is your brain actually calculating when it does this? The answer traces back to a concept the biologist W.D. Hamilton formalized in the 1960s, now known as kin selection. Hamilton's insight was mathematical and at first glance almost cold. From a purely evolutionary standpoint, helping a genetic relative survive and reproduce can pass along your own genes almost as effectively as reproducing yourself, because relatives share a portion of your genetic code. Hamilton's rule predicts that organisms across the animal kingdom, not just humans, should be more willing to help, protect, and trust individuals who are more closely related to them. Bees sacrifice themselves for their hive. Ground squirrels risk predator attacks to warn siblings. Trust, in evolutionary terms, isn't just a feeling. It's a strategy for spreading shared genetic material. Your ancestors lived their entire lives inside small kinship groups, where resemblance was one of the only reliable signals available for identifying who actually was, biologically, family. Long before written records, before surnames, before any formal way to verify a relationship, a shared face was evidence. A cousin who looked like you probably was your cousin. Trusting that face wasn't sentimental. It was a survival calculation running quietly in the background of your ancestors' minds, and it worked well enough, often enough, to get passed down to you. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. That ancient kinship detector never got an update explaining that resemblance today usually has nothing to do with genetic relatedness at all. The psychologist Henri Tajfel demonstrated something remarkable about how easily this system can be triggered by almost nothing. In a series of experiments now called the minimal group paradigm, Tajfel randomly divided participants into arbitrary groups, sometimes based on something as meaningless as a coin flip or a preference for one abstract painting over another. Participants had no history with their group, no shared genetics, no real basis for loyalty whatsoever. And yet, within minutes, they began favoring members of their own randomly assigned group, giving them better rewards, trusting their judgment more, treating outsiders with subtle suspicion. The kinship detector, it turns out, doesn't require actual kinship. It only requires a signal, however flimsy, that says this person belongs to my group. A shared face, a shared accent, a coin flip. Your ancient trust circuitry isn't picky about its evidence. It only needs a pattern that resembles the ancient signal of family, and it fires the same warm, trusting response regardless of whether real kinship is anywhere involved. Think about what that means for the modern world you actually live in. You now move through cities, workplaces, and online spaces filled with thousands of strangers your ancestors' detection system was never built to sort through, and your brain, still running that same ancient kinship shortcut, keeps reaching for the nearest available resemblance cue, a similar face, a shared hometown, a matching accent, and quietly treating it as proof of belonging. Not because it's accurate, because it's the only tool this circuit has ever had. That reframes a lot of quiet, everyday bias you might never have examined closely. The instant comfort you feel around people who look, sound, or dress like you isn't a reflection of their actual trustworthiness. It's an ancient kinship alarm firing on a shallow, modern substitute for the signal it was built to detect. And the discomfort you might feel almost as automatically around someone who doesn't share those surface signals isn't information about them either. It's the same ancient circuit, simply finding less to latch onto. Once you can see the mechanism, you get to choose what to do with it. You can notice the reflexive warmth toward a familiar-looking stranger and ask whether it's actually earned or simply inherited. You can notice the reflexive caution towards someone unfamiliar and ask the same question. The circuit itself isn't going anywhere. It's tens of thousands of years old, and it isn't being retired anytime soon. But recognizing it for what it is, an ancient kinship detector firing on modern noise, gives you something your ancestors never had: the ability to catch the shortcut in the act and decide for yourself whether to follow it. You met someone last week who reminded you of yourself, and you trusted them a little faster without knowing why. That wasn't a character judgment. It was a piece of you, tens of thousands of years old, still scanning every face for the ancient signal of family, still doing the only job it was ever built to do.